Hi everyone tonight. We're going to leave the glowing screens, buzzing alerts, and synthetic pillows of modern life behind and time travel into a world where people actually slept well. Not just hit snooze twice well, but drift into a fog of stars well. Picture this, a cottage deep in the countryside. No lights, no traffic, no phones, just a vast inky blackness curling around the thatched roof like a wool blanket. This is the kind of night where even the wind sounds sleepy. But don't get too cozy just yet, because honestly, you probably wouldn't survive a single week in this world. No fridge, no antibiotics, and your bedroom smells suspiciously like goat. Yet somehow, you sleep better. Every night, like a log. Why? So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I do here. And tell me where you're watching from and what time it is there. I want to know if you're watching this at 2 a.m., like a true medieval insomniac. Now turn off the lights, maybe turn on the fan for some soothing noise, and let's get started on tonight's journey together. You shuffle along a dirt path toward your tiny wooden cottage. The sun's been down for hours. The only thing glowing is the faint amber of a dying fire. The world around you is black. Not city black. Not my bedroom with the router light black. This is pure darkness, the kind that stretches all the way up to the stars and makes your pupils gulp in every flicker of light like they're starving. The year is roughly 1327. You're a peasant. You don't know what a smartphone is. The word insomnia doesn't exist yet. Neither do ceiling fans. But you're exhausted in the good way, the kind of tired that settles into your bones after a long day of turning hay, fetching water, dodging angry geese, and hauling things that should never be carried by one person. You step inside your one-room home. The air is warm from the hearth. Your partner and 3 kids are already curled up on a straw-stuffed mattress, snoring softly. In the corner, a pig. Not snoring, just watching, judging. It's fine. The fire is nearly out. You don't poke it. You don't need light right now. You just lower yourself onto the edge of the bed, sigh once, one of those deep guttural sighs that comes from the soul, and you're out. See, back in your time, night meant one thing: darkness. No glow from street lamps. No 24/7 store signs. No headlights. Just moonlight when you're lucky, starlight when the clouds behave, and pitch black everything the rest of the time. That darkness, it's not scary to you. It's sleep's best friend. Historians still debate whether the absence of artificial light was the main reason peasants slept so well, or if it was just part of a simpler, body-aligned lifestyle. But you, medieval, you don't care about the debate. You just know that once the sun dips below the horizon, your brain starts whispering, "Nap time, champ." What's wild is that without artificial light, your body produces melatonin naturally at night, like clockwork. Unlike modern you who scrolls TikTok for 90 minutes while your brain screams, "Why is the sun still in your hand?" Back then, the sun set, and people wound down because that's just what humans do when left alone in the dark. Your world is ruled by the sun. It tells you when to eat, work, rest, and reflect. After sunset, there's nothing left to do. No emails, no trending drama, no late-night bagel runs. Just rest. If you're lucky, maybe a little quiet gossip while everyone settles in. But more often, just breathing, creaking wood, and the distant hoot of an owl who sounds like it smokes cigars. Here's the thing, They've found letters and journals where people complain about how well they sleep, not in the "I'm not sleeping" sense. In the "oops, I fell asleep too fast and forgot to pray" sense. Imagine living in a world where falling asleep too quickly is considered a moral risk. Now let's not romanticize everything. You're cold in the winter, hot in the summer. Sometimes lice is a problem. Sometimes fleas are a problem. Occasionally the rat in the corner is a bigger problem. But those things didn't stop people from sleeping. They were normal. You right now might wake up in the middle of the night because your phone made a sound like a wind chime. Medieval you might wake up because a rooster had an attitude problem. But that's okay. We'll get to your weird two-part sleep routine in the next part. What matters is that every night you fall into a darkness that feels safe, protected, heavier than silence. The kind of darkness that doesn't feel empty, it feels like velvet. And velvet is good for sleep. Odd fact, some households would hang animal skins over their lone window to block out the moon. Not because they were vampires, but because they believed too much moonlight could make you sick. You took sleep seriously. You didn't mess around. And maybe the most underrated reason you slept well, no one expected you to be available. There was no social pressure to text back, no late-night doom scrolling, no blue light. The village is asleep. You are asleep. The pig probably still judging. You don't track your REM cycles. You don't worry about sleep apps. You sleep when it's dark, you wake when it's light. It's not perfect, but it works. So tonight, as your eyes start to flutter shut, in your 21st century bed, try this. Imagine everything going dark. No lights, no noise, just a stillness so big you could fall into it forever. That was every night for centuries. You wake up in the middle of the night, and here's the strange part. It's not weird. You don't jolt up in a panic. You don't check your phone because it doesn't exist. You don't try to count sheep or panic Google, why do I always wake up at 3 a.m.? You just wake up. It's sometime after midnight. The fire has died down to glowing red lumps. The room is cold enough to make your nose feel like it's about to resign from your face. But everything's quiet, peaceful. You lie there for a moment, then sit up. And what you do next, that's the part that would confuse your modern self. You're entering your second wake. See, medieval people didn't sleep in one long 8-hour chunk. They slept in two chunks, something now called segmented sleep. You'd lie down around sunset or shortly after sleep for a few hours. Wake up around midnight, hang out for an hour or two, then fall back asleep until dawn. Totally normal. In fact, so common that people didn't even have a name for it. It was just life. Historians still debate whether this two-part sleep was biologically natural or simply shaped by the rhythms of candlelight and labor. But the records are everywhere. Monks scheduled prayers between first sleep and second sleep. Medical texts recommended doing certain things like taking medicines or conceiving babies during that middle-of-the-night gap. And average peasants, well, they got creative. You stoke the fire. Maybe someone's snoring. Maybe someone's talking in their sleep again, a medieval sleepover classic. The room smells like burned wood, stale sweat, and whatever your dinner was 5 hours ago, you're used to it. Now what? You don't go back to bed immediately. Some people use this time to think. Others pray, journal, or gossip quietly. Sometimes, if the weather's nice, you might even go visit a neighbor. Knock, knock. Hey, couldn't sleep either, boom. Midnight hangout, 13th century style. One recorded story from 1450s England even tells of a farmer who would use this period to mend tools. Can you imagine hammering a sickle while your family sleeps, the glow of the fire lighting your hands? This wasn't just some insomnia coping mechanism. It was a whole lifestyle. This middle time was sacred in its own quiet way. It was slow, reflective, no urgency, no stress. You weren't failing at sleep, you were participating in it. In fact, some old texts refer to this interlude as the watching hour. Some believed it was a spiritually potent time. Dreams felt more vivid, thoughts felt clearer. Your soul, they said, could wander more freely. You might reflect on a dream you just had, or if you were religious, which, let's face it, most people were, you'd kneel and pray in the fire's glow, asking for protection through the rest of the night. Odd fact, certain love poems from the period suggest couples used this interlude as well-quality time. The quiet dark, the shared warmth. Let's just say first and second, sleep may have made for strong marriages. Now it's easy to ask, why don't we do this anymore? Well, everything changed with the invention of artificial light. Once people started staying up later under gas lamps and eventually electric bulbs, the two-sleep rhythm faded. It wasn't immediate. But slowly, society shifted. The quiet, dreamy interlude shrank, replaced by later bedtimes, and the race for uninterrupted, efficient rest. Fast forward to today, and waking up at 3 a.m. feels like a failure, like your brain betrayed you. But maybe it's not failing at all. Maybe it's just trying to remember what it used to do. Anyway, back to you, medieval you. You poke at the fire, think about tomorrow's chores, then lie back down. The straw mattress creaks. Your shoulder bumps against your kid's foot. You sigh, stretch, and slide back under your scratchy wool blanket. The darkness wraps around you again like a whisper, and before long you slip into second sleep. This second round of rest, it's different, deeper. You've burned off the day's anxieties already. Your body's already halfway relaxed. You're not crashing, you're sinking. Oddly enough, sleep researchers who study segmented sleep have found that this second phase often contains the most intense dreams. It's when you're fully released, totally dropped into your subconscious. And you're dreaming of green fields, rain that doesn't leak through the roof, and let's be honest, bread. Meanwhile, outside your cottage, the village is still. No lights. Just the wind brushing over mossy rooftops and the occasional grunt of someone else going through their second wake. Remember how people now buy sunrise alarm clocks to simulate natural light, yeah? Medieval peasants just had the sun. You'll wake up with it soon enough, but not yet. Not until second sleep has taken you all the way down into that buttery soft unconsciousness that doesn't care about Monday emails or late rent or what your ex posted on Instagram. It just is. And maybe the most magical part. No one thinks this is weird. Waking up in the middle of the night isn't a glitch. It's a feature. You're not broken. You're medieval. Sleep isn't a race. It's a rhythm. And your body in this old world of firelight and rooster alarms knows exactly how to keep the beat. The morning sun peeks through the wooden slats of your tiny window, not aggressively, not in a get-up-and-suffer way. Just a gentle golden nudge. A beam of light warms the scratchy wool around your shoulders. You roll over, grunt, and inhale the unmistakable aroma of, ah yes, damp straw onions, and the faintest whiff of pig farts. Welcome back to your medieval bed. Let's take a look around this luxurious sleeping arrangement of yours. First, the mattress. It's not memory foam. It's not orthopedic. It's a big cloth sack filled with straw or hay, lovingly referred to as a palliasse. And guess what? You made it yourself, or your spouse did, or your parents, or literally anyone but a factory. And while it does poke you in places you'd rather not be poked, it also breathes. It's natural. It doesn't trap heat like a cursed memory foam oven. In the summer, it's cooler. In the winter, you throw another itchy blanket on top and keep breathing into your knees like a human fireplace. Now about that blanket made of wool usually. Thick, heavy, and woven so tight it could probably stop a small arrow. The color depends what you could afford: undyed brown, earthy gray, or maybe a surprise patch of blue if your neighbor owed you a favor. You stretch your legs and promptly kick someone in the shin. Oops. Because here's the thing, you're not alone in this bed, or this room. Medieval peasant homes were often one-room cottages. The bed was the biggest piece of furniture, and sleeping was a communal sport. Your partner is next to you. Your youngest child is curled behind your knees. Your other kid is across your ankles, and yes, that's a chicken nesting suspiciously close to your feet. Cozy maybe, cramped absolutely, but weirdly effective. Body heat is a magical thing. Before central heating, before hot water bottles, before those weird microwavable plushies, you can hug, humans had each other. Shared sleeping wasn't just for warmth. It was for safety, in numbers, against the cold, against danger, against waking up alone in the pitch-black void with only a bat and your thoughts. Historians still debate whether peasants liked this arrangement or just accepted it because there weren't other options. Either way, it worked. The nightly shuffle into bed was a family routine, like a burrito wrap of warmth, occasional snoring duets, and unspoken elbow boundaries. Let's talk structure. The bed frame, if you're lucky, is made of rough-hewn wood. If you're not, it's the floor, or straw spread over it. Some families had raised wooden frames to avoid the cold ground, plus ropes or wooden slats to support the mattress. And those ropes, they'd sag over time, so you'd tighten them nightly with a wooden tool. Hence the phrase, sleep tight. Yep. That's not just grandma slang, it's peasant life. Odd fact, some beds had bed curtains even in peasant homes, not for privacy, but insulation. Imagine drawing a woolen curtain around your bed, sealing in body heat, like a medieval thermos. Luxury. Now let's talk about your ceiling. It's low, thatched. Spiders live there probably, but it also muffles sound like wind rain or a distant drunk neighbor yelling about someone stealing his turnips. Your walls wattle and daub a mix of wood-mud straw and the tears of whoever had to repair them last winter. But again, these walls insulate. They breathe. They let out moisture. And yes, sometimes they let in a squirrel. Nature's trade-off. No TV, no noise machine. But outside, there's the steady drip of water from the eaves. A rooster somewhere has opinions. The wind presses against the window like it wants to gossip. These are your bedtime sounds, real, rhythmic, soft enough to fade into dreams. What's most fascinating about all of this is how perfectly the space matched the sleeper. Your body knew this place. It was rough and uneven, but predictable, comfortable in its own crooked way. Modern, you might scoff, no pillow top, no silk sheets, but medieval you wouldn't trade your bed for a stone bench in a cold monastery, no matter how fancy their Latin sounded. You lived in a world where comfort wasn't about softness, it was about familiarity. That straw mattress might itch, but it smells like your family. The wool blanket scratches, but it holds memories. The walls creak like they're whispering bedtime stories you've heard 1,000 times. Let's not ignore the vermin. Yes, sometimes there were fleas, mice, lice. But you had remedies, herbs tucked into the bedding, like lavender or pennyroyal to repel pests. You probably didn't know why they worked. You just knew they helped. And you trusted the knowledge passed down by your grandmother, who told you if the straw started rustling, just pretend it's the saints testing your patience. By now, your household is stirring. Someone's elbowing someone else. The chicken flutters indignantly off the bed. You wipe your face and check your fire, it needs feeding. Another day is coming. But sleep, that was good. Solid. You didn't wake up sore. You didn't hit snooze. You didn't dread the day. Your body had a conversation with the bed, and both sides agreed this is where we heal. Here's the kicker. Recent sleep studies show that firmness, breathability, and natural materials often support better sleep. Sound familiar? Your itchy, lumpy straw mattress just got a 5-star review from Science TM. So while you might not have a Sleep Number, a weighted blanket, or the latest $800 orthopedic memory slab, what you do have is this: a body aligned with its surroundings, a bed that does the job, and a room full of the people and livestock you love most. Okay, maybe not the livestock part, but hey, the chicken's part of the family. You step outside your cottage just before dawn. The air is cold enough to kiss your skin, and the sky glows the faintest grayish blue like a candle barely flickering into life. There are no numbers in the air, no ticking clocks, no calendar apps or countdowns. Just you, your breath clouding in the stillness, and the soft scrape of your feet on damp earth. This is what mornings looked like before time became something you could argue with. See, you don't know it's 5:42 a.m. because time as you understand it now doesn't exist in your world. There's no wall clock, no phone screen, no glowing microwave panel reminding you you're 5 minutes late for life. There are sundials, sure, but they don't work in the dark. Candle clocks exist too, but they're expensive, slow-burning, and wildly inaccurate if there's a breeze. So what do you do instead? You feel the time. You feel it in your bones, in your stomach, in the position of the stars. You wake because your body tells you to, not because a machine insists, and that makes a huge difference. Modern sleep is obsessed with schedules. Wake at 600 joules. Shower at 6:15. Caffeine at 6:20. Misery by 6:45. But in your medieval village, time is seasonal, flexible, and emotional. It flows, not ticks. It bends to your chores, the harvest, the church bells, if your village is lucky enough to have a church. Otherwise, you follow the light. Historians still debate whether medieval peasants truly had free time in the way we imagine it. But one thing is clear, they weren't ruled by the same relentless minute-by-minute precision we are now. You didn't have to sync your sleep to fit a 9 to 5 or a 7 to 7 if you're in retail hell. Your rhythm was biological. You go back inside. Someone else is waking. They grunt. The baby hiccups. There's no panic. No rush to brush teeth, slap on deodorant, and hustle out the door. You rise because it's light enough to start work, or because your stomach is growling, or because the pig is pacing again and he's your unofficial alarm clock. Odd fact, while we assume peasants lived on grueling dawn-to-dusk labor schedules, many had slower mornings than we do now. You didn't start field work before light. It was impractical. Instead, you might spend early morning preparing food, tending animals, or chatting with family. Clocking in wasn't really a thing. The rooster crowed, the sun yawned, and so did you. One of the most revolutionary parts of your sleep. You didn't fight it. If you were tired in the afternoon, you napped. If it rained and work paused, you took a rest. There was no badge of honor for pushing through. No productivity cult screaming at you to crush goals on 4 hours of sleep and an anxiety smoothie. You were tired, so you slept. Revolutionary, huh? You stir the fire back to life. The smell of smoke rises again, earthy and familiar. You break off a piece of yesterday's bread and dunk it in warm goat's milk. That's your breakfast. It's not exciting, but it's real. Your stomach knows what to do with it. And without caffeine jolting your nervous system into a chaotic circus, your body wakes up gradually, kindly. Here's something fun. People often talk about natural circadian rhythm like it's some mystical concept. But you're living it. Your body rises and rests with the sun. In winter, you sleep longer. In summer, you rise earlier. No shame, no guilt. No, I should be doing more. Just existing in rhythm. And because your sleep isn't crushed between the dread of tomorrow and the regret of today, it works. It feels like it's supposed to. You fall asleep when you're sleepy. You wake up when your body has had enough. No alarms, no clocks. Just you and the sky dancing the same old waltz since the dawn of humans. Another perk of no time pressure, no bedtime anxiety. You know the feeling. You lie in bed at 11 p.m. thinking, if I fall asleep right now, I'll get exactly 5 hours and 14 minutes of sleep before my alarm. Yeah, that mental math spiral doesn't exist here. You lie down, you sleep, you wake up. That's it. Sometimes the village bell rings to mark a holy day or call you to mass. That's the only consistent sound you might associate with time. Otherwise, it's seasonal bells, not hourly ones. There's even a sense of community to this structureless structure. You don't feel behind or late or lazy because no one else does either. Everyone moves to the same tempo, a shared, gentle beat of survival, work, and rest. Imagine what that does to your nervous system. By mid-morning, you're out in the field, hands in the dirt. It's hard work, but not cruel. And because your body slept when it needed to and rose when it wanted to, you can do the work. You're not dragging yourself like a zombie. You're present. You're capable. And when evening comes, there's no rush to cram in tasks. You slow down as the light fades. No screens to overstimulate. No to-do list buzzing. You move towards sleep like a leaf drifting downstream, not like someone slamming the brakes at midnight. So tonight, when you feel that pull towards sleep, don't check the time. Don't calculate. Don't panic. Just go with it. You don't owe your body a performance. You owe it permission. Because back in your medieval life, that's all it needed. The pig is breathing on your toes again. You shift under the wool blanket and try not to wake anyone, but it's too late. The youngest child has already started murmuring in that sing-song nonsense voice kids use right before they ask for something you don't have. Like apples. In February. In 1343. The bed creaks, someone coughs, and the entire room seems to stretch and grunt awake like one big organism. Because here's the thing, you all sleep together. Literally. Not because it's cute. Not because it's trendy. Because it's how people survived. You shuffle upright and look around the room. It's the same every morning. You, your partner, the kids, maybe a cousin, the neighbor's boy if his roof caved in again. And of course, the livestock. There's a chicken under the bench, a goat near the door. And the pig sleeps like royalty. To modern you, this setup might sound like chaos, like an unsanitary cuddle pile crossed with a farm. But back then it was normal. It was smart. Because when you don't have central heating thermal pajamas or a space heater disguised as a Scandinavian lamp, you make warmth the old-fashioned way with bodies. People slept communally for centuries. Not just for heat, but for safety. If a thief tried to sneak in, you'd hear them. If the fire went out, someone would notice. If your kid started wheezing in the night, you'd be there. No baby monitors needed, just proximity and ears. Historians still debate whether peasants had the option not to sleep communally, or whether space and poverty made it unavoidable. But there are clues. In bigger households, when a little privacy was possible, people still chose to sleep near others. Alone in the dark, that's a scary idea when wolves are real and doors are suggestions. Odd fact, in some colder regions, it was common for strangers to sleep in the same bed when traveling. Inns often had just one or two big beds and everyone just scooted over. Personal space never met her. But warmth, that's priceless. You shift toward the fire. The coals still glow. Someone adds a log. A few sleepy murmurs echo in the room, half dreams, half sentences. No one's in a hurry. You're all still wrapped in the warmth of the night, the tail end of second sleep. It's a soft moment. Not quite morning. Not quite night. Just family. And by family, we don't just mean blood relatives. In medieval villages, community ties were so tight they might as well be DNA. You'd take in a neighbor during a storm, let a cousin crash on the floor for a month. Households were flexible, beds even more so. Was it comfortable? Not by luxury hotel standards. You shared space with sweaty feet, occasional snoring, and the undeniable scent of unwashed human. But there was a comfort in numbers, an emotional blanket woven from trust and necessity. You didn't lie awake scrolling through other people's curated lives. You didn't doom spiral through tomorrow's to-do list. You didn't overthink whether your blanket had weighted pressure technology. You just existed. In warmth. In darkness. In the sound of your family breathing in rhythm. Sometimes you'd wake in the night and talk, quietly so as not to disturb the whole bed. Little midnight chats. Did you hear about Agnes's goat? Do you think we'll have sun tomorrow? I stepped on the pig again. Moments of connection tucked between dreams. This kind of physical closeness did something to your nervous system. It said, you're safe. You're not alone. You don't have to be on alert. Even if wolves howl outside and the thatch leaks and you're down to your last piece of salted pork, you're not alone in the dark. Compare that to modern sleeping. Your room might be silent, temperature controlled, beautifully decorated, but you're alone staring at a rectangle of artificial light, convincing yourself not to Google strange chest twinge left side. You're physically isolated and emotionally on high alert. There's a word for this kind of comfort, by the way. Co-sleeping. Today it mostly applies to babies and small children. But back then it was for everyone. Infants, kids, adults, elders, even animals. They didn't get kicked out, they got invited in. Because warmth wasn't just about temperature. It was about connection. A soft shoulder, a familiar snore, a pig that occasionally licked your heel like a sleepy blessing. And in that tight arrangement, your body learned to rest deeply. Not because it was perfectly still, but because it trusted the space. You knew someone would stir if anything was wrong. You knew your child was breathing. You knew that despite the draft and the damp and the weird creak in the wall, you were surrounded by life. There's a reason why even today, people sleep better with pets in the bed. It's not just cuteness, it's biology. We evolved to sleep in groups, not in sterile boxes, not alone with only a smart speaker for company. So the next time you feel weird about needing background noise or hugging a pillow to fall asleep, remember your brain is wired for togetherness, not silence, not separation, just the soft, chaotic harmony of shared rest. And hey, if that includes a goat under the table and a pig who insists on being the little spoon, so be it. It's nighttime again. You're outside just for a moment, stepping away from the warmth of the fire to relieve yourself in the dark. There's no bathroom, of course. No glowing tiles or polite exhaust fans humming in the ceiling. Just the earth beneath your feet, a makeshift latrine in the corner of the yard, and a cold breeze that politely slaps your face and says, "Good luck." And above you, stars. They are ridiculous. Too many to count. Not some vague sprinkling of dots like you'd see through a city haze today. These are full-blown, glittering, myth-making stars. Constellations sharp enough to stab. The Milky Way like a celestial river frozen mid-pour. The kind of sky that makes you pause even with your pants down and feel very, very tiny. This is the nightlight you've always had. Moonlight, starlight, firelight. That's it, and it's enough. You shuffle back toward the cottage, your breath fogging like a small ghost. The house is dim inside, just a few embers and maybe a tallow candle flickering by the bed. No artificial light. No overhead glare. No blue light attacking your melatonin production like a caffeine-crazed woodpecker. Just the softest glow. Historians still debate whether firelight was better for sleep than complete darkness. But many agree on this, it didn't hurt. You see, your body responds to light temperature. Warm, low light like fire signals rest. Cold, bright light like your phone screen at 2 a.m. tells your brain to panic about tigers or taxes. Guess which one medieval you had? Odd fact, wealthy households used polished metal or even water-filled bowls to reflect candlelight and magnify its glow across the room. But peasants, you made do. A single flame, a glowing coal. Maybe moonlight spilling through the shutter if you forgot to close it, or didn't mind the occasional bat. Inside the cottage, the light wraps around everything like a soft blanket. Shadows stretch lazily along the walls. Faces are barely illuminated. It's the kind of light that encourages whispers, that tells your body, shh, it's late. Time to slow down. Compare that to modern life. Our nights are shattered with brightness. Street lamps stabbing through windows. Bathroom lights blinding you when you get up to pee. Phones, TVs, fridge lights. Even the off button on your TV glows like a tiny eye that never blinks. You can't escape it. But in your medieval world, light has meaning. You use it sparingly, carefully. A candle isn't just a vibe, it's a resource. A flame costs money. Tallow has to be rendered. Wicks have to be twisted. So you don't waste light. And in not wasting it, you protect your sleep. Back outside, the sky has changed again. Clouds roll over. The stars dim. You hear something in the woods. Is it a deer, a fox, a spirit trying to borrow sugar? You hurry back in. Yes, the night can feel eerie, even in its beauty, especially in a world where superstition thrives. People believed spirits wandered after dark, that certain dreams meant omens, that if the moon hit your face wrong, you might fall ill or go mad. You didn't just sleep at night. You negotiated with it. Some households placed iron objects near the bed to ward off spirits. Others sprinkled salt around doorways. And everyone knew not to whistle in the dark. That's just asking for trouble. But that fear, it wasn't the neon anxiety of modern insomnia. It was mythic, manageable, a kind of respectful caution, not existential dread. You crawl back into bed, the candle flickering low beside you. The light makes your partner's face glow like a half-finished painting. You whisper a joke about the pig snoring louder than the priest during Sunday Mass. Someone giggles, the candle sputters, and then darkness again, real darkness. So deep you feel like you're floating in it. You can't see your hand in front of your face. There's no glowing charger, no fridge hum, no just checking my notifications. Your brain unburdened by light surrenders. This is why your sleep is different, why it's deeper. Because light, when used like this, gently, briefly, sparingly, becomes a signal, a ritual. It tells your mind, we're done for the day. Let go. It doesn't yank you out of sleep with a push notification. It tucks you in. Even waking up to pee at night, it happens, you don't fully wake. You squint at the glowing coals, make your way outside by moonlight, and return to your bed without engaging the modern chaos of fully lit consciousness. You drift down again like a feather, barely disturbed. If you've ever had the luxury of camping far from cities with no phone service and a sky so black it swallows sound, you've tasted this. That gentle descent into sleep, the surrender, the sense that everything is done for the day, and that's okay. It's not fancy. It's not expensive. It's not on sale this weekend. It's just the natural rhythm of night. The quiet return to a world where light has power and sleep has permission. So tonight, when your room feels too bright, close the blinds. Turn off the screen. Maybe even light a candle just to extinguish it slowly later. Give your brain the cue it's been craving for centuries. Return to the dark and let it hold you. You wake up in the dark again, not because your alarm screamed at you or your smartwatch vibrated like it's got something urgent to say. No. You wake up because your bladder has made a formal complaint. With a groan that probably scares the pig, you throw off the itchy wool blanket, step carefully over your oldest child, who's somehow upside down, and head toward the door. You're half asleep. The floor is freezing. The night air seeps in like it owns the place. And now you're outside again, peeing into a wooden trough like a half-frozen woodland creature. But out here in the stillness, you're not alone. The wind whistles like it's gossiping. The trees rustle even though nothing should be moving. And somewhere not far off, there's a sound. Maybe it's just an owl, or maybe it's something else. You pause, because here in the medieval night, everything feels more alive, and just a little haunted. See, this moment, the midnight pee break, is more than just a biological necessity. It's a glimpse into the culture of night, a time medieval people treated with a weird mix of practicality, reverence, and a touch of superstitious dread. You finish your business and shuffle back inside, but now you're alert in that groggy, what did I just hear kind of way. You're not terrified exactly. just cautious. Because while we now divide our lives into day and night, peasants often divided their nights into something else, safe versus not so safe. Historians still debate how much of medieval nighttime fear was rooted in real danger, like bandits or animals, or if it was more about folklore and religious teachings. Either way, people respected the dark. Odd fact, some believed that spirits walked at certain hours, especially during that watching hour between first and second sleep. That time between roughly midnight and 2 a.m. was when the world felt thin, easier to poke through. You didn't go outside unless you had to. You didn't whistle. And if someone you knew was found wandering aimlessly at night, sleepwalking or not, they might have ended up at the priest's door for a quick exorcism consultation. Your own village is small, maybe 20 homes. No streetlights, no security cameras, just flickers of candlelight behind shutters. Most people are asleep now or lying quietly in that dreamlike in-between. You can hear the occasional cough. A rooster confused makes a soft, hesitant crow like even he isn't sure if it's morning yet. Back inside, you lie down again. But this time you don't fall asleep right away. You stare into the shadows and listen. The fire has burned down to a single glow, red like an eye, lazy and blinking. And you think about the stories. There was that one old tale told by your grandmother about the woman who left her house to fetch water during the second sleep and came back different. Didn't speak, didn't blink, slept every night after that with her eyes open and one hand clenching straw. People said she'd seen something. Others whispered she'd been replaced. There's another story about the man who walked through the fields at night and found a procession of ghostly monks chanting by moonlight. He followed them, thinking it was a dream. When he awoke in his bed, his feet were muddy, and his robe smelled like incense. In the medieval mind, night wasn't just dark. It was liminal, a space between. And your interrupted sleep wasn't a flaw, it was a window, a chance to pray, to reflect, or to encounter something. And what did most people do in that window? Well, the smart ones stayed indoors. They lit a candle, whispered to their spouse, sipped a bit of beer or warmed wine. Some used this time for intimacy, others for quiet prayer. The really brave ones told jokes. But you don't joke too loud. Not at night. Because night had ears. There's a reason why medieval sermons warned against being out too late. Darkness was associated with sin, with temptation, with spirits, and moral decay. If someone was regularly seen out at night, people talked. Nightwalker wasn't a sexy vampire term, it was a bad thing, sometimes even criminal. In London, there were even ordinances against walking the streets after curfew, unless you had a lantern and a good excuse. And in many places, guards patrolled to enforce that curfew, not to protect you necessarily, but to protect everyone else from you. So your midnight bathroom run, that's one of the few acceptable reasons to be up and about. And even then you move fast, eyes down whispering a quiet prayer to Saint Eligius, or whichever saint you think might be on night shift. But let's not forget the other side of this, the peace. Because once you're back inside under that scratchy blanket, surrounded by the soft breathing of your family, and maybe a pig making happy grunt noises in its sleep, the stillness settles in. It's not eerie anymore. It's velvet again. The outside might be full of strange sounds and stranger stories, but in here you're safe. Your mind can wander, but your body is still. That second sleep, it's calling you now stronger, deeper, and you let go. Because nothing's chasing you, not tonight. That midnight break into the night reminds you of something precious. You're alive, and the world is enormous. The sky is endless. The air is sharp. The ground is cold. And your bed, crowded and itchy and noisy, is still the softest place on earth. So when you lie awake at night in your modern life, don't panic. Don't scroll. Just imagine stepping outside into the dark, breathing in the cold air, looking up at the stars, and knowing that even now, especially now, you're part of something ancient. Even if you do smell faintly like pig, you're sitting by the hearth poking at a pot of something vaguely brown and suspiciously lumpy. It's dinner or possibly breakfast. Honestly, in your medieval life, those two often look the same. Welcome to the flavorful world of gruel. Now, before you click away in horror, let's talk about how what you don't eat is exactly why you're sleeping like a rock every night. Your diet as a medieval peasant is profoundly simple. Bread, porridge, beans, root vegetables, maybe a hunk of cheese if the cow's been kind, and a bit of ale that's barely stronger than a modern kombucha. You're not exactly training for the Great British Bake Off here. But this peasant pantry, humble as it is, has one enormous sleep-boosting advantage: no caffeine, no sugar bombs, no late-night spicy takeout regret. Historians still debate exactly how varied the average peasant diet was across different regions and seasons. But one thing is consistently true: your meals don't mess with your sleep. You're not pounding espressos at 4 p.m., or chasing dessert with an energy drink just to push through. You eat real whole foods and your body thanks you with a full, uninterrupted blackout of unconsciousness. Take gruel, for instance. Yes, it sounds like something a villain in a Dickens novel would slap onto a plate, but it's actually pretty decent sleep fuel. Oats, barley, maybe a few leeks or lentils thrown in. Slow-burning carbs, warm, comforting texture. It's the medieval version of melatonin gummies minus the marketing. And no coffee. Not even a hint. Coffee wouldn't even reach Europe until the 16th century, and it didn't go mainstream until much later. In your time, Nada, you wake up slow. You lean on warm broth, not buzzed-up bean juice. Your heart rate remains at resting farm animal speed until midday, and honestly, that's ideal. Odd fact, instead of caffeine, people often drank small ale, a weak low-alcohol beer brewed specifically for everyday hydration. It was safer than water since boiling and fermentation killed off most nastiness. But it didn't get you drunk. It just hydrated you gently and made everything feel slightly more medieval. You sip your ale now, sitting beside the fire, dipping your crust of bread into the thick broth. It's not fancy. It won't go viral on food TikTok. But it fills you. It grounds you. And crucially, it doesn't mess up your sleep cycle. Modern life is full of sneaky sleep disruptors. Caffeine hidden in chocolate. Sugars that spike your insulin and then crash you into the floor. Fatty late-night snacks that sit in your gut like a rock concert. But you're on the peasant plan: eat when it's light, sleep. When it's dark, digest like a pro. After dinner, there's no Netflix binge. No just one more scroll. You talk with your family, maybe sing, maybe tell a story about that one guy who swore he saw a talking fox in the woods. The pig grunts approvingly. Your body begins to slow like a candle burning lower. You feel it in your limbs. You're winding down not because the clock says so, but because your body says so. And your stomach. It's not yelling. It's not bloated. It's not battling a double chili cheeseburger while your brain begs for rest. You've eaten your simple meal. You're satisfied, and your gut can quietly shut down for the night. Here's the science-y bit, but I'll keep it dreamy. Modern researchers now understand that digestion and sleep are deeply connected. Spicy, rich, or sugary foods eaten too close to bedtime can raise your core body temperature and delay melatonin production, which means you feel tired but can't fall asleep. Meanwhile, your peasant diet, full of fiber, low on processed nonsense, encourages natural sleepiness. You don't even know the word melatonin, but your pineal gland is out here high-fiving you in gratitude. And let's talk herbs. Your village healer, maybe the local midwife or wise woman, knows all the sleepy plants. Chamomile, valerian, lavender. These aren't bedtime tea fads. They're real old-school remedies, tucked under pillows, brewed into teas, or crushed into poultices. Some folks even tied bundles of calming herbs above the bed to help with nightmares or restlessness. The original aromatherapy diffuser. Tonight, as you crawl into bed, you can smell the faint trace of dried lavender tucked into the thatch above your head. It's not strong, it's subtle, but it works. It tells your brain, we're safe, we're done, let's drift. You pull the blanket up. Someone sneezes. A child rolls over and mumbles about bread. The pig snorts once and settles in like he owns the place. And your stomach quiet, content. No reflux, no bloating, no regrets. Just a full belly, a calm mind, and a body ready to hibernate like royalty. Let's be honest. Most of us today aren't losing sleep because the mattress is bad or the pillow is wrong. We're losing sleep because our bodies are overwhelmed by sugar, by caffeine, by stress hormones, and dinner served at 10 p.m. after an Uber Eats bender. But you in your rough-hewn home with your no-frills meal and your wooden spoon, you're thriving. Your body gets what it needs. Nothing more, nothing less. And it pays you back in full every single night with the kind of sleep people now pay hundreds to try and replicate. So if you ever want to sleep like a medieval peasant, skip the energy drink. Have a bowl of warm soup, sip something soothing, sit by firelight, and don't eat anything that glows in the dark. The sun is high, your back is sweaty, your hands are rough, and you've just spent the last 3 hours pulling weeds from soil so dry it might as well be gravel. Your knees are cursing your ancestors. Your forearms feel like they've been replaced with burlap sacks filled with bricks. And yet somehow you're smiling. Because you medieval peasant, you just did a full morning of back-breaking labor, and you still feel mentally fine. Exhausted, yes. Covered in dust, definitely. But mentally, you're clear. You're present. You're at peace. And here's the wild part. All this work, it's setting you up for the best sleep of your life. Modern sleep advice always says, get exercise during the day, but few people interpret that as drag a full yoke of water across a half-mile field, chop wood, haul hay, plow mud with your body weight, and run after a cow that suddenly developed abandonment issues. Yet that's exactly what you're doing. And somehow it works. See your body as the sleep switch, and movement is the key that turns it. Everything about your day, your constant movement, exposure to natural light, time in the fresh air is priming you to sleep like a medieval rock at sundown. Historians still debate whether peasant life was truly a never-ending grind, or whether it actually involved more rest than we think. But one thing is clear, while your labor is physical, it's not the kind of labor that leaves you spiritually bankrupt or emotionally burned out. You're not stuck in traffic. You're not doom-scrolling. You're not doing the soul-depleting shuffle of modern burnout, where your brain checks out at 10 a.m., but your body has to keep going until 6. No. Your work is hard, but it's visible. It's tangible. When you plant something, it grows. When you build something, it stands. When you finish a task, you're done not on call for 1,000 tiny pings at 11 p.m. Odd fact, many medieval peasants worked long hours during peak seasons, but had surprising amounts of downtime during slow periods, especially in winter or on religious feast days. Labor was intense, yes, but not constant, not soul-crushing, not the 24/7 productivity treadmill we romanticize and regret at the same time. Today, we talk about work-life balance like it's a unicorn. But for you, it's built into the year. The church calendar provides rhythm. Feast days, saints' days, even seasonal rest days are common. And most importantly, nobody's mad if you nap. That's right. Naps are not shameful. They're just part of life. You come in from the fields at midday. You've eaten some bread, maybe a bit of soft cheese if the cow was generous. The heat is unbearable. There's no shade in the fields, and the sun hits your thatched roof like a judgmental slap. So what do? You nap on a bench in a pile of hay curled in a shady corner. You let your body do the thing it wants to do, rest. And no one calls you lazy. No one sends passive-aggressive scrolls about productivity. Because everyone else is napping, too. The world is honest in its cycles. It's hot. You're tired. You'll work again later. For now, sleep. There's something powerful about this, the permission to pause. The acknowledgement that your body is a living thing, not a machine. That work doesn't have to destroy you to matter. And that tired doesn't mean broken. Modern society loves to say, sleep when you're dead. But medieval peasants, they'd laugh. Because they know sleep isn't weakness, it's fuel. The better you sleep, the stronger you work. The more you rest, the more you can give. It's a cycle, not a sacrifice. Tonight, you'll collapse onto your straw mattress. Not because a spreadsheet broke your soul, but because your body moved. Because your hands built. Because your sweat wasn't wasted on panic, it served a purpose. Your eyes are already heavy, and the sun hasn't even set. But you'll make it a little longer. There's bread to be baked, tools to be wiped clean. You'll share a meal by firelight, laugh at someone's ridiculous story about the town goose being cursed, and maybe sneak a kiss from your partner while the kids pretend not to notice. Then sleep. And it comes fast. Not like modern sleep where you lie in bed and spiral through every awkward thing you've said since 2009. This sleep is earned. Deep. Total. Like you've been unplugged from the grid of existence and safely stored for later. No white noise machine. No melatonin gummies. Just a body that worked and a body that rests. If you've ever spent a day outside digging planting or hiking until your limbs feel like cooked noodles, and then you fall asleep before your head hits the pillow, that's medieval peasant sleep. That's what you get every single night. And no, it's not glamorous. Your shirt smells like onions. You've got dirt in places that defy physics. Your knees make weird popping sounds now. But your soul quiet. Your mind still, your dreams uninterrupted. So maybe the next time you feel burnout creeping up your spine like a swarm of inbox notifications, step outside. Move. Not for a step count. Not for likes. Just move. Work with your hands. Tire yourself in the good way. And let your body remember what it feels like to earn sleep. You'll thank your medieval self later. It's Sunday morning, and you're not working. That alone might surprise you. After all, you're a peasant in the 1300s. Don't you have fields to plow, animals to feed, lords to appease? Normally, yes, but not today. Because today is the Lord's day, and it comes with a divine mandate: thou shalt chill. You stretch. The sun is rising slowly over the trees, birds chirping, like they're auditioning for a medieval Disney movie. The fire is still warm from last night. You yawn, scratch your head, and realize with a flicker of delight that you're allowed to take it slow. You don't grab a scythe, you don't haul water, you rest, which means yes, you get to nap. Gloriously, guilt-free, often. See, the medieval calendar was studded with holy days, feast days, saint days, and church-mandated times of rest. Some years, peasants got upwards of 80 days off for religious observance alone. That's not counting Sundays. That's not a typo. 80 days. And while not every day off was a lazy Netflix-in-bed vibe, some involved fasting, church, or community labor. They often came with reduced expectations and a whole lot of lying around in the grass. Historians still debate whether this much rest made peasants more obedient, more grateful, or simply harder to control the rest of the time. But one thing's for sure: structured rest was baked into life. Odd fact, in some towns, Sunday labor wasn't just frowned upon, it was illegal. If you were caught working in the fields on a Sunday, you could be fined or publicly shamed. One guy in 14th century France was literally dragged from his plow and forced to kneel before the church because he couldn't resist a bit of extra tilling. That's commitment to both agriculture and public humiliation. Today you wander down to the village church. It's small, mossy, smells like old wood and candles. The service is in Latin, which you don't really understand. But that's fine, nobody does except the priest. You kneel, you mumble, you stand up when everyone else does. You bow your head. And somewhere between the third chant and the awkward cough behind you, you feel something weird: stillness. Not boredom, not anxiety, just stillness. That rare, precious moment when your mind is neither racing forward nor dragging behind. You are here, in the present. Not because someone told you to meditate, but because you're allowed to stop. After church, people linger. They chat, trade stories, gossip gently about whose cow is probably possessed. The kids play. The elders nap in the sun like overgrown cats. The energy is soft, easy, forgiving. You walk home and feel the heat pressing down on your shoulders. You've got nothing urgent to do. No deadlines. No notifications. You eat a slow meal, some bread, maybe a poached egg if you're lucky, a bit of honey. And then you lie down, right in the grass, or in your bed, or under the shade of that one crooked tree behind the house, and you nap. Not one of those 20-minute mid-commute, please let this refresh me naps. This is a deep nap, a holy nap, a God-approved snooze, and you're not the only one doing it. Back then, the community rested together. Whole villages quieted down. The hum of tools disappeared. The only sound was wind in the trees, kids giggling, and the occasional pig arguing with a fence post. It turns out, when you live in a world without artificial pressure, guilt-free naps are completely normal. You didn't have to earn it by working extra hard. You didn't have to deserve rest. It was just expected, and your body loved it. Today we call it polyphasic sleep or structured rest periods. But to you, it's just a nap, one of many. You've probably taken 3 this week. You might take another tomorrow if the weather turns or the crops need to wait. Rest isn't a luxury. It's part of the rhythm. The kind of rest you get on Sundays isn't lazy, it's restorative. It lets your body recover from the week's labor and prepare for the next. It keeps your nervous system from spiraling. It resets your muscles, your mind, and your mood. And because everyone rests together, you don't feel behind. There's no competitive grind, no #hustle Sundays. Just people, being people. Later that day, you might join a feast. If it's a Saint's Day, someone's probably roasting something over a spit, while a group of neighbors plays the flute badly and dances with zero rhythm but total joy. Laughter carries through the fields. Someone's already dozed off on a bench. No one minds. Because on this one day, work doesn't define you. Sleep is sacred, rest is honored, and doing nothing is actually doing something. Imagine what that would feel like now. If an entire town decided together, today we will not push, we will not produce, we will lie in the grass and let the sky happen above us. What would your nervous system do with that kind of peace? Probably fall asleep, maybe in the sun, maybe right now. So if you're listening to this while fighting off sleep, ask yourself, when's the last time you rested because you should not, because you had to? Maybe today can be your Sunday, even if it's a Wednesday. The wind outside has teeth tonight, sharp, wintry ones. It whistles through the gaps in the walls, tickling the flame of the hearth, until it dances wildly, like it's trying to warm you from across the room. You wrap yourself tighter in a blanket that smells like goat and old bread, and listen to the world breathe under a thick layer of frosted silence. You're not surprised the night feels colder. You've been sleeping more lately, a lot more, because in the medieval world, seasons run your sleep schedule. Modern life has flattened time. We turn on lights, crank up heaters, and ignore nature's cues like we're better than circadian rhythms. But you're at the mercy of the sun. When it rises late and sets early, so do you. When it barely peaks above the horizon by noon and vanishes before supper, your body takes the hint. And it responds by hibernating peasant style. Historians still debate just how much extra sleep people got in winter. But records and folk traditions hint at a luxurious truth. People slept longer, often stretching those sweet first and second sleep cycles into 12-hour odysseys of unconscious bliss. You go to bed not long after sunset, maybe around 6 or 7 p.m., because let's be honest, there's literally nothing to do in the dark but eat, whisper, or quietly argue with the pig. You sleep your first sleep deeply. Wake around midnight. Tend the fire. Say a prayer. Talk softly with your partner. Maybe write something by firelight if you're literate and poetic. Then second sleep. And this one stretches and stretches until the weak dawn light finally starts to creep through the shutter like a shy ghost. We're talking 10 hours of sleep regularly, with the occasional bonus nap if the snow keeps you from getting to the fields. You sleep like nature intended, not by force but by default. Odd fact, wintertime was so linked to rest that in some communities, wintering became a verb. It meant more than just surviving the cold. It was about slowing down, letting the land and the body pause. Imagine that a whole season that gives you permission to sleep more. And no one judges you for it. There are no productivity gurus in your village asking what goals you've hit before sunrise. There's no January email about New Year, New You. There's just the fire, the dark, and your brain entering maximum power-saving mode. Contrast that with summer, when days stretch long and sleep gets trimmed around the edges. You go to bed later, rise earlier, and spend more time in the sun. It's busier, yes, but your body compensates. The rhythm isn't broken, it's seasonal, like fruit, like everything in your world. You don't freak out over a change in your schedule. You don't resent your body for needing more rest. You're not trying to fix anything. Because here in your medieval life, you're allowed to ebb and flow. Your brain is literally wired to this. Light suppresses melatonin. Darkness increases it. No LED tricks. No phone screens hijacking your pineal gland. The sun rises, your hormones follow. The sun sets and you descend into the soft, fluffy void of sleep without resistance. And this means something important: you never fight sleep. You don't lie awake wondering why you can't drift off. You don't scroll through sleep hygiene blogs at 1:47 a.m. You don't drink a glass of wine hoping it'll knock you out and wake up at 3:22 sweating and regretful. You just sleep because your whole environment allows it. And when the seasons shift again, when the days get longer, the frost melts, and you're back to spending more time outdoors, your sleep adjusts. Naturally. No jet lag, no blue light blockers, just a gentle change like switching from a wool tunic to a linen one. It's not perfect. The cold bites. The food is leaner. Sometimes the roof leaks or the smoke doesn't vent right and the house fills with enough haze to make your lungs question your decisions. But through it all, your body sleeps. And because it sleeps well, it recovers. The aches from work fade. The fear from famine softens. The grief from loss becomes bearable. Sleep isn't just a break from the world, it's a way through it. In winter, sleep becomes a kind of protest, a refusal to bend to the harshness of the season. You huddle, you rest, you wait, and your body thanks you with stronger mornings. There's something deeply human in that, something honest. You're not a machine. You're an animal with a soul. You're meant to change with the light. So tonight, if your modern self finds the darkness a little heavier, the bed a little more magnetic, the day a little too short, lean into it. Don't resist. Let yourself winter. Pull the blanket over your head. Let the silence stretch. Let the outside world disappear for a little longer. Sleep like you were meant to, deeply, seasonally, unapologetically. It's the middle of the night again, and you're awake, but not in that modern panicked, "Why am I like this?" kind of way. There's no anxiety, no frustration, no shame spiral about not getting your mythical 8 uninterrupted hours. You just woke up. The fire is still glowing faintly. The room is still. Someone's snoring softly, probably the child who insists on sleeping sideways, and the pig's rhythmic grunts make a decent background soundtrack. And instead of tossing and turning, you do what any respectable medieval peasant does in the watching hour. You start doing things. Because between first and second sleep, there's this lovely little pocket of time when your body is rested, but not fully asleep. Your mind is calm, not racing, and you have a moment in the middle of the night to think, talk, pray, dream, and yes, sometimes even wander around the village like a nocturnal philosopher with dirty feet. Historians still debate just how common these waking interludes were across all of medieval Europe, but there are too many letters, medical texts, poems, and casual mentions of them to ignore. First sleep, wake, activity. Second sleep, a built-in rhythm that nobody questioned. Tonight, you sit by the fire and sip something warm, maybe a bit of ale, maybe a broth, maybe just hot water steeped with mint or valerian root. Your partner mumbles something half asleep. You respond. Then comes the real midnight magic. The talking begins. There's something about this time of night that opens people up. You talk about the cow that's been acting funny, the kid who ate half the honey stash, the strange dream you had where the village priest turned into a turnip. It's quiet, silly, soft, a time for thoughts that feel too fragile for daylight. Odd fact, some medieval medical guides actually recommended this time for deep conversations, problem solving, and even creativity. Your brain, it turns out, can be especially lucid in this half-dreaming state. People wrote letters, worked out dilemmas, came up with plans. They called it the watching, and for some, it was their favorite part of the day. You lean back and watch the fire. Someone else stirs. You whisper to them. Maybe the kids wake up for a few minutes too. Nobody's mad about it. There's no frantic go back to sleep energy. Because this pause is normal, expected, even useful. And here's the fun part: sometimes during this window, people would leave the house. Yes, really. You wrap yourself in a cloak and step outside. It's cold, but the air is so clean it tastes like iron and moss and distant rain. You wander down the path toward a neighbor's home, quietly, carefully. Maybe they're up too. Maybe their hearth is glowing. If the moon is bright, it lights your way like a pale, slow-moving lantern. You knock gently, not urgent, just a soft tap. And if they're up, they'll welcome you in. Share some stew. Tell you what they dreamed. Ask about the weird noise from your barn. You laugh. Whisper. Sit close to the fire and listen to the crackling. This wasn't weird. It was a thing. Night visiting. In a world without social media or instant messaging, the middle of the night became a social window, small, quiet, deeply human. Not for everyone and not every night, but part of the rhythm of sleep and wakefulness that stretched across the darkness like a soft, woven net. And if you stayed inside, you might use the time to pray, to sew, to write if you were literate or dictate thoughts to someone who was. You might mend a shoe or prepare a poultice or just sit and stare at the fire. Sometimes couples used this time to be close, very close. Let's just say the population didn't sustain itself by accident. In fact, odd fact number 2, certain medieval fertility texts actually advised couples to make use of the time between sleeps, arguing that the body was rested, the mind was calm, and the soul was open. History's weird, right? Eventually, second sleep calls to you again. It's not abrupt, just a gentle pull like the tide coming back in. You say your good nights or simply shuffle back toward the straw bed without a word. The pig grumbles. A child rolls over and makes room without waking. You lie down and close your eyes. And here's the thing, you fall asleep easily. Not because you forced it, but because you let the in-between time be what it was. No pressure, no stress, just a quiet moment of night living. Compare that to modern insomnia. You wake at 2 a.m. Check the clock. Do the math. If I fall asleep now, I'll get exactly 3 hours and 52 minutes. Feel panic. Try breathing exercises. Check your phone. Regret checking your phone. Search how to fall asleep fast. Wonder if chamomile tea works. Contemplate your entire life. Lie there spiraling. But you, medieval you just live through it. You talk, you think, you breathe, you stretch. You treat wakefulness not as a failure, but as a phase, a rhythm, a space to just be, and then you sleep again. Like it was always part of the plan. So maybe next time you wake up at 3 a.m. and stare at the ceiling, don't fight it. Don't curse it. Just be with it. Get up. Stretch. Write something. Talk to someone if they're there. Sit in the dark and let the stillness speak. And when the tide comes in again, you'll float right back, like a peasant in the moonlight. You stir before the sun does. No alarm. No vibrating wrist gadget. No blaring jingle from a phone you forgot to plug in. Just a gradual awareness rising from the depths of second sleep like bread in a warm oven. Your body knows it's time. There's a rooster outside having what can only be described as a full-blown existential crisis. It's not the tidy little cock-a-doodle-doo of cartoon fame. It's a weird screeching opera performed for an audience of goats and people who don't want to be awake yet. But somehow it works. Because in your medieval life, you don't rise to a sound that yanks your soul out of REM like a hook through a fish. You rise to natural cues. A sliver of light cutting through the shutter. The warmth of someone next to you shifting under the blanket. A change in the sounds outside. Your body isn't ambushed awake. It's invited. That's the difference. And it matters. See, modern sleep often ends with violence. A harsh beep, a buzz, a song you used to like until it became your wake-up trauma. But for you, peasant, you waking is part of the sleep rhythm, not a slap in the face. Historians still debate exactly how structured these wake-up times were. Some households rose at sunrise year-round. Others adjusted by season, rising later in winter, earlier in summer. But there was one consistent truth: your biology was in charge, not your boss. Odd fact. Some monasteries used water clocks or candle clocks to wake monks for night prayers, but the average peasant. You had the sun, the rooster, and your own gut instinct. If the animals started fussing, the day was on. If the light hit your face just right, it was time to move. And when you woke, you didn't rush. There's no school run. No inbox screaming for you. You don't bolt upright in a panic like you've forgotten something important. You wake slowly. Stretch. Yawn wide enough to scare the pig. Then sit up, rub your eyes, and stare at the fire embers for a minute or two before anyone even speaks. The pig snorts. Someone says something groggy about soup. One of the kids is still snoring in that weird, pitchy way that suggests maybe they swallowed a flute. You smile. You're awake, but you're not alarmed. And that's where things get really different from modern life. Today, we're addicted to hustle wake-ups, cold showers, biohacks, win the morning, win the day vibes. But in your world, winning the morning means not burning your fingers on the kettle, and maybe remembering to feed the chickens before they peck each other's self-esteem into the mud. You wake with the world, not against it. You stand. Stretch again. The morning air kisses your ankles with an icy hello. You wrap your shawl tighter and check the door. Light spills in now, that silvery winter kind that makes everything look just a little holy. And then you go outside. The sky is still blushing from the sun's arrival. The frost crunches under your feet. Your breath puffs out like smoke signals from a sleepy dragon. You don't say anything. You just feel it. The quiet. The return. The ritual of another day gently opened. This is how peasants woke up. Not because they were lazy. Not because they had no ambition. But because the world itself moved slowly. And when your day is built around real work, physical, thoughtful, communal work, your morning doesn't need to slap you awake. It welcomes you. Even the animals have their own rhythm. Chickens pecking slowly. cows shifting weight, the occasional indignant goat yelling at literally nothing. You feed them one scoop at a time. You hum a little. Not a performance, just noise, just to say I'm here. It's morning. And here's something wild. In modern sleep studies, researchers have found that people who wake up gradually with light and nature and quiet often report more energy than people who wake abruptly to alarms even when they sleep fewer hours. It's not just the quantity of sleep, it's the quality of waking. When you get up without panic, your body's stress hormones don't flood your system. Your cortisol rises naturally, as it's supposed to. Your mind isn't trying to outrun anxiety before you've had your first breath. You're just alive again and ready. So maybe that's why, even though your bed is made of straw, your pillow is a folded tunic, and the pig has definitely drooled on your ankle. In the night, you still wake up more rested than most people in 2025. Because you've respected the entire arc of sleep from how you fall into it to how you exit it. No snooze button. No revenge bedtime procrastination. No shame spiral about hitting dismiss and then oversleeping. You wake when your body says, okay, that's enough. Dream goat chasing for now. Let's go move some hay. And honestly, that's enough. So tomorrow morning, when your alarm buzzes like an angry hornet, maybe stop. Try a little medieval magic. Crack the window. Let light in. Stretch slowly. Let your body decide when it's ready, not your calendar. And if you hear a rooster, consider it a compliment. You're sick again. Maybe it's a mild fever. Maybe it's that weird cough everyone's been passing around the village like a bowl of soup. Maybe it's just the exhaustion of a cold winter and too many turnips. Whatever it is, you feel it. Your limbs are heavy. Your breath is shallow. You move like your joints have been swapped out for soggy rope. And what's the first thing everyone tells you to do? Sleep, not push through it. Not take this pill and power through. Not you're fine, just walk it off. No. Here in your medieval world, the universal cure, the go-to remedy, passed down through generations of healers, midwives, monks, and grumpy old ladies who smell like time, is rest. More specifically, long, deep healing sleep. You lie down next to the hearth. Someone covers you in every wool blanket in the house, including one that definitely smells like goat hooves. Someone else heats up broth, nothing fancy, just water herbs, maybe a bit of onion or bone if you're lucky. It's not gourmet, but it's warm. And warm means something. Warm means you're cared for. And then you sleep for hours, maybe days. You drift in and out, not fully awake, not fully unconscious, just floating in the quiet in between. And no one rushes you out of it. No one gives you a lecture on maximizing your output. Because sleep is your medicine. Odd fact, many medieval texts, especially those written by monks or healers, recommended bed rest as the first line of defense for almost everything. From digestive issues to melancholy, from head wounds to heartbreak, the answer was sleep more. Historians still debate whether this advice was rooted in genuine understanding of biology, or if it was just the one thing poor people could consistently afford. But either way, it worked. Sleep was sacred, protective, regenerative. In a world without antibiotics, without painkillers, without any assurance that your illness wasn't about to end in a candlelit funeral procession, just wasn't a suggestion. It was a lifeline. And your bed, it becomes a little nest, a healing hut. Sure, it's made of straw, and someone keeps stepping on the edge of the blanket, but it holds you, gently, like a cradle for your exhausted soul. Sometimes a village healer stops by. They smell like fennel and serious opinions. They press a hand to your forehead. Mutter something to Saint Hildegard or Saint Apollonia depending on your symptoms. Then they leave you with a sprig of something green to burn by your bed. And this timeless advice: sleep. Let your body do the work. There's no mention of hustle. No guilt-tripping about lost time. No suggestion that you're wasting the day. Because when someone is sick, the entire house adjusts. Your family does the chores. Someone feeds the fire. Someone else tends to the goats, and not even passive-aggressively. Because today your job is to rest. Compare this to modern life. Feeling sick. Better check your email. Better tell your manager. Better post something lighthearted on social media so no one suspects you're spiraling. And for the love of capitalism, don't sleep too long. You might miss a meeting, but not here. Not in this time. Here, sleep is the best thing you can do. Not just physically, but spiritually. Many believed that dreams during illness were important messages from the body or even from God. You might dream of angels or water or your dead grandmother yelling at you for not wearing socks. All of it means something. So you listen, you rest, you sweat, you sigh, and you heal. Eventually the fever breaks. Your breath evens out. Your muscles stop fighting you. And the first thing you feel after the fog lifts isn't urgency, it's gratitude. Because that sleep saved you. You sit up groggy, but better. Someone brings you warm bread. You eat slowly like a baby deer learning how teeth work. And even after you're technically okay, people still tell you to take it easy. Why? Because recovery is part of health. And no one expects you to bounce back overnight. Not when sleep is the cornerstone of everything. And it's not just for sickness. Your sad sleep. Your angry sleep. You twisted your ankle chasing a goose sleep. Even village arguments often ended with someone saying, "Go lie down." You'll see it clearer in the morning. Because they usually did. Your world doesn't pretend that sleep is optional. It's built around it. Encouraging it. Honoring it. Trusting it. Not just as a physical need, but as a form of wisdom. Your body knows things your mind hasn't caught up to yet. And sleep is how it whispers those things to you. So tonight, if you're worn out, physically, mentally, emotionally, don't reach for a distraction. Don't fight it. Just lie down. Let yourself disappear into darkness. Trust that the rest will do more healing than any tweet, any scroll, any venting session. Sometimes sleep isn't the escape, it's the answer. The church bells are ringing. Slowly, mournfully. You stir in bed not from rest this time, but from the weight of something else. Grief, maybe. Hunger. Fear. Because today the world is quiet, but not in a peaceful way. Outside there's no chatter from neighbors. No familiar shuffle of hooves in the dirt. The birds are silent. The air feels too still, like it's listening. You sit up. Your chest is tight. Not from illness, but from knowing. There's a plague in the next village. Or maybe it's already here. In the world of the medieval peasant, chaos is not rare. Famine, war, disease, death, these aren't headline-grabbing events. They're rhythms, just like planting and harvest. They come, they leave. Sometimes they take people you love. Sometimes they take everyone but you. And yet, even in that chaos, especially in that chaos, you still sleep. Not always well, not always deeply, but consistently. Because you have to. Historians still debate whether peasants had more resilience to trauma because they experienced it so regularly, or whether they just adapted differently without therapy, without the language of mental health, but with rhythms that protected them. Sleep was one of them. Odd fact, during the worst waves of the Black Death, people wrote about falling into deep sleeps, not because they were dying, but because exhaustion, grief, and hunger forced the body into retreat. The kind of sleep that isn't chosen, it's survival mode. Today, your neighbor's door hasn't opened. The family that lives there hasn't come out. You know what that means. No one says it. They just look down. They light a candle. They let the silence speak. You go about the day's tasks because they still need doing. Animals must eat water, must be carried, but everything is muted. Your footsteps feel heavier. Your muscles ache faster. You snap at the child who asked for a second hunk of bread, then immediately regret it. You're tired. But not just in the physical way, in the soul way. And so that night, when you lie down under the same blanket, next to the same people -1, you feel the weight of the day press into you like stone. You don't want to think. You don't want to dream. But you sleep anyway, because your world demands it. You fall into unconsciousness, not because you feel safe, but because your body takes sleep like medicine. It shuts you down so you don't break, so you can rise again, so you can bury the dead, plant the seed, hold your child, wash the blanket that still smells like someone who's gone. In war, during raids or invasions, peasants often slept in shifts. Someone would stay awake, keep watch, but the others, they still slept because they had to, because they knew tomorrow would require strength. And if you didn't sleep, you wouldn't make it to tomorrow. And here's the strange, haunting truth, even in chaos. People often reported sleeping more. The body's last-ditch effort to protect itself. You remember this years later when a season of famine rolls through. Crops die, bellies shrink, people hoard what they can. The village becomes quieter again. And once more you return to sleep not as escape, but as resistance. In sleep you are whole. You are not starving. You are not grieving. You are not watching a village shrink. You are just a body wrapped in darkness, safe for a few hours. Modern life has taken sleep and turned it into a thing to optimize. But in your world, it's a thing to trust. Because sleep will carry you through things your conscious mind cannot survive. It will hold your sorrow, stitch your wounds, silence your screaming thoughts. It won't erase what's happening, but it will soften the edges. Even when the world is on fire, even when the barn has been ransacked, even when the plague cart rolled through this morning and took someone you just laughed with yesterday, you will still sleep, and this is not weakness. This is survival, and somehow tomorrow you'll wake up. You'll pull on your rough tunic. You'll step outside. You'll breathe in the cold air and see frost on the grass and think, okay, we're still here. Because the world has ended 1,000 times before. And every time people went to bed, pulled a blanket over their head, closed their eyes, and slept. And when they woke, the world began again. So tonight, if your heart is heavy, if your chest feels full of stones, if your mind is loud, just lie down. Let the darkness have you. Let the stillness hold you. And let sleep be the one thing you don't have to fight. You slip into the manor house like a shadow, eyes wide, mouth slightly open. This isn't your usual environment. The stone walls are cold and echo every sound. The floors are swept, the tapestries thick, the air perfumed with lavender instead of onions and goat. Welcome to the bedchamber of a noble where wealth meets, well, not exactly better sleep. Because here's the twist, even with all this money, this silk, this heavy velvet curtain situation, the nobles, they don't sleep as well as you do. Strange, right? They've got big beds, some of them four-posted monsters elevated like thrones and draped in layers of embroidered cloth so heavy it feels like sleeping inside a theater curtain. Their mattresses are stuffed with feathers instead of straw. The sheets are linen if they're lucky, and the pillows are so overstuffed they basically qualify as furniture. But here's the thing, comfort and sleep aren't always best friends. Historians still debate whether medieval noble beds were truly more comfortable, or if they were more performative, built to show off wealth rather than support great dreams. Because honestly, some of those feather beds sank trapped heat and didn't breathe well. And no amount of gold thread fixes a mattress that turns into a fluffy pit of humidity. And then there's the noise. You'd think stone walls make for peaceful nights, but they echo like a medieval podcast studio. Chambermaids, whispering dogs, barking servants, stoking fires. And nobles were never alone. There was always someone hovering nearby. Always someone ready to light a candle, bring a drink, fan them with a peacock feather, because apparently that was a job. Try sleeping with a teenager you don't know, just standing in the corner, waiting to pass you a hot rock wrapped in cloth. Nobility also came with anxiety. Political rivals, inheritance drama, that bishop who keeps sending weird letters. Oh, and don't forget God, who you're now technically supposed to be closer to, but also terrified of. Nobles often feared sleep because dreams were seen as potential messages from beyond. And nightmares. Oh, those could be omens. Bad ones. You, the peasant, dream about bread and sunshine and maybe that one attractive cheese merchant. They dream about burning cities and being dragged to hell by a goat with your uncle's voice. Odd fact, some nobles slept with rosaries wound around their wrists just in case they died in their sleep and needed to prove devotion at the pearly gates. That's how stressful noble sleep could be. And we haven't even gotten to the clothing. Yes, nobles sometimes slept in their fine undergarments, or in winter even fully clothed, because those castles, not warm. Wealth bought many things, but central heating wasn't one of them. You could pile on blankets until you resembled a human lasagna and still wake up with icicle toes. Meanwhile, you straw mattress, scratchy blanket, snoring pig, and all sleep deeply, because your life, though hard, is honest. Your exhaustion is physical, not psychological. You're not juggling a dozen enemies and a fleet of cousins who want your land. You're just trying to make it to spring with enough onions. Let's talk about access. If a nobleman couldn't sleep, he might summon a physician who'd offer prayers, herbal mixtures, maybe even bleed him a little. Because sure, losing blood always helps with insomnia, right? You chew on a bit of valerian root stuff, lavender in the wall crack, and fall asleep, listening to the rhythmic sound of someone breathing beside you. You don't have silk. You don't have status. You definitely don't have a peacock feather fan. But what you do have is sleep that works. There's something wildly freeing about not being observed, not being scheduled, not being important enough to be constantly watched. Your life, messy and loud and exhausting, gives you the freedom to collapse at the end of the day without ceremony. You're not sleeping like royalty. You're sleeping like a human, and it turns out that might be better. Historians often romanticize noble life, but sleep, they've started to realize, wasn't part of the fantasy. Peasants with their natural rhythms, lower stress levels, relatively speaking, and daily physical work probably slept deeper, better, and longer. Even monks, who were some of the best sleepers, shout out to strict schedules, and no toddlers woke for midnight prayers and had their sleep broken. But you had the space, the darkness, and the bodily need to go all in. So tonight, if you're lying in a perfectly made bed with a memory foam pillow, 3 blankets, and still can't drift off, just remember some rich guy in a giant castle with 40 servants and a falcon on a perch also couldn't sleep. And he didn't even have Wi-Fi to blame. Meanwhile, your medieval peasant self, sore, smelly, unbothered, was already dreaming about how good that first bite of bread was going to be in the morning. Sometimes less really is more. It's nighttime again, and this time you're not the one trying to fall asleep, you're watching someone else. A child, your youngest to be specific. Curled up beside you, cheeks flushed from the firelight, eyelids fluttering as they drift into a dream. One hand still holding a crust of bread they insisted they weren't finished with. The other clinging to your tunic like an anchor to this world before they sail off into sleep. And tonight, as you lie there watching them, you think about how different their bedtime is from what modern people might expect. Because for a medieval peasant child, sleep is sacred. Not because they read 10 books on it, not because they follow a carefully calculated melatonin schedule with white noise and blackout curtains, but because you make it so. It's your voice, your rhythm, your presence that guides them into rest. You hum. You murmur something that might be a lullaby, might just be words you made up. It doesn't matter. The sound is safe. Odd fact, in medieval Europe, lullabies were often hauntingly beautiful, sometimes even a little spooky. They acknowledged the real dangers of the world, sickness, death, hunger, but softened them with rhythm, repetition, and love. Sleep, child, the wolves are far one Breton lullaby went. Not exactly Disney, but deeply comforting in its own way. Historians still debate how widespread formal lullabies were in peasant homes. But one thing is clear, soothing bedtime rituals existed. From humming to storytelling to the use of sweet herbs, parents knew the power of ritual to coax sleep from a squirming, wide-eyed kid. Tonight you've crushed a bit of lavender and mugwort between your fingers, rubbed it gently along the blanket seam. It's not magic, but it feels like it. In fact, some midwives recommended stuffing dried herbs into little pouches and placing them near a child's head, not just for the scent, but to ward off nightmares and restless spirits. Whether or not that worked, who knows? But it made bedtime feel intentional, like protection, like love wrapped in moss and soil. And then there are the bells. If your village is near a church or chapel, you might hear a soft bell at night. Not the loud announcing kind, just a low humming toll. Sometimes called a curfew bell. It was a signal to put out fires, say prayers, and prepare for rest. Some parents used it as a bedtime marker for their kids, a holy lullaby of sorts. You tell your little one, when the bell rings, the moon is watching. They don't know what that means, but they smile anyway. Children in your time don't fear sleep the way many do now. They don't associate it with monsters under the bed or endless screen time that leaves their brain buzzing like a swarm of bees. They associate it with closeness, warmth, familiar sounds, a rhythm so deep it's in their bones. They also sleep beside you. No crib, no baby monitor, no separate nursery with a $300 camera system. Just bodies together woven like roots in the dark. If they cry in the night, you're already there. If they start to cough, you're already awake. Co-sleeping isn't controversial. It's how it's done. And somehow, because they're next to you, and because you're next to them, everyone sleeps better. There's a rhythm in the room. Breathing, shifting, the crackle of the fire. It's not silent, but it's deeply peaceful, like the whole world exhaled at once. Of course, it's not always easy. Sometimes the kid kicks. Sometimes they wake up screaming about something invisible. Sometimes they pee the bed, and you have to change the straw stuffing while half asleep and grumbling the Lord's name in vain. But none of it is strange. None of it makes you feel like a failure. You're a parent. This is what it looks like. And tomorrow they'll be tired again. And tomorrow you'll do it all again. Because sleep isn't just something you get through with your children. It's something you teach them how to love. You show them that darkness isn't scary, that stillness is safe, that closing their eyes is a return, not a disappearance. And maybe most importantly, you never tell them to just lie still until sleep comes. You hold them until it does. That's the part that modern life sometimes forgets. Sleep is learned through feeling. And your child in this cold little cottage with a stomach full of beans and a heart full of mossy lullabies is learning to trust the night. You stroke their hair. You kiss the top of their head. You whisper something old, something your grandmother said to you. Sleep now, my little star. The night has teeth, but you have me. Their breathing slows. Their hands relax. The bread crust falls to the floor with a soft thump. And you close your eyes too, knowing that the best sleep is not the kind that comes from having the perfect mattress or the ideal bedtime routine. The best sleep, the kind your child is growing into, is the kind built on presence, rhythm, closeness, trust, and maybe a little crushed lavender. It's late. So late the moon is high and the stars are starting to look bored. Everyone should be asleep, and yet you hear something. Footsteps, not just yours, not your family's, not the pig's, he's definitely snoring. Someone is walking through the village, slowly, softly, like they don't want to be heard but kind of do. You sit up, not afraid, curious, because in your world, the night is not dead time. It's not just sleep and silence. It's alive, whispering, moving. You throw on a tunic and step outside barefoot in the cool dirt. A breeze brushes your face, bringing with it the smell of smoke and moss and someone baking bread. At this hour, welcome to the strange and surprisingly busy world of night walking. A medieval phenomenon that's less about crime and more about living quietly when no one else is watching. Historians still debate what motivated this nightly behavior. Was it restlessness? Habit, something cultural, spiritual? But the evidence is everywhere: journals, laws, poems, complaints to the village council. People moved through the night. You walk slowly through the village, and now you see it: someone tending the fire at the bakery. Someone else feeding a goat by candlelight. A third figure walking along the road, with a bucket, humming something low and tuneless. These people aren't drunk or deranged. They're just awake. Odd fact: in some medieval cities, night walkers were officially categorized, not always criminals, but certainly watched. A woman walking alone after curfew might be questioned. A man out late might be assumed to be a thief or just as likely someone heading to an illicit tryst. But in villages, things were looser. The boundaries fuzzier. Night was gray, not black and white. You know, some people do their best thinking at night. There's the old tanner who wakes every night to stir his hides. Says they cure better by moonlight. There's the widow who sits on her porch, talking to no one, maybe to someone gone. And of course, there's the boy who sneaks out to meet the girl whose father keeps a sword under his bed. Love has never been good at keeping curfews. But not all night walking is poetic. There are those who walk with purpose, the watchers. Appointed by the village or the Lord's steward, these men carry staffs and lanterns and walk the dark paths, keeping an eye on things. Not lawmen exactly, but not harmless either. If they find you and you're not a familiar face, there might be questions, and if you're carrying something heavy and suspicious, more questions. Still, most of the time, the night belongs to those who are just restless. Maybe their sleep was broken. Maybe they're grieving. Maybe their mind is heavy with something they can't name, and the only cure is to move. And it's not just the conscious ones. Sometimes people wake and walk and don't remember. There are old stories about sleepwalkers called night rovers in some parts, who wandered far from home, sometimes barefoot, sometimes murmuring. People said they were touched. Some said they were spirit-led. If you saw one, the rule was don't wake them, don't speak. Just watch and let them return on their own. Tonight, the road feels wider. The sky is unusually bright. You keep walking past the well, past the edge of the fields, and you see someone sitting alone, an old woman maybe. You nod. She nods back. No words exchanged, just two people sharing the night. And you realize something, this is the only time you're ever alone. The day is full. The house is full. Even dreams are crowded. But this hour, it's yours. You sit under the stars for a while. You think about nothing or everything. You scratch a bug bite. You let your feet get cold, and slowly your mind starts to soften. The sharp edges of thought round off. The hum in your chest slows down. You stand, walk back, gently, step around the sleeping dog, step over the boy who somehow ended up outside again. Back inside, the fire's dim. Someone's snoring. Someone else is murmuring about apples. You lie down. The mattress welcomes you like a tired friend, and you sleep. Not because you've run out of things to think about, but because you've given them space. You've honored the night for what it is, not just a blanket over the world, but a whole other world. So the next time you find yourself awake at some unreasonable hour, pacing, restless, unsure, don't panic. You're not broken. You're just a night walker, like the baker, like the widow, like the boy chasing love and the girl who waits, like you. Let the night breathe, and when you're ready, come back to bed. You wake up, standing. You don't remember getting up. You don't remember leaving your bed. And yet here you are, half outside the cottage, barefoot in the dew-soaked dirt, staring at the tree line like it's whispering your name. You blink. Look around. Heart beating fast. The stars are still out. The fire inside is low. Everyone's asleep. Except you. Or you were. Welcome to the strange, eerie, and often misunderstood world of Sleepwalking Medieval Edition. In your world, sleep isn't just sleep. It's mystical. It's physical, yes, but it's also emotional, religious, sometimes even supernatural. And when someone begins to move during sleepwalking, mumbling, staring, even weeping, it's not seen as random. It's a sign. Historians still debate how medieval people truly interpreted sleepwalking. Was it demonic possession? A divine message? An illness of the soul? Or just a weird thing the body sometimes did after too many turnips and not enough water? The answer is yes, all of it, depending on who you asked. In some villages, sleepwalking was seen as spirit travel, your soul leaving the body to wander. If you were caught doing it, people might tiptoe around you. They'd never wake you. They might whisper prayers. Some would even throw a pinch of salt over your shoulder the next day, just in case your spirit came back carrying something it shouldn't. Odd fact, there are records from the 15th century of people being accused of witchcraft because they were seen wandering at night in a trance. Not casting spells, just walking, with no shoes, blank-eyed, repeating the same word, water, water, water. Tonight, as you return to bed half-conscious, the straw poking your feet back into full wakefulness, you lie down with the weight of a dream still clinging to your shoulders. Did you really see the woman in the woods? Was there a light? Or was it all in your head? You don't speak of it the next morning, because in your world, talking too openly about strange sleep can lead to trouble. People might think you're cursed, or worse, that you've been touched, a vague but serious term that could mean anything from divine vision to outright heresy. Instead, you tell your partner, I had a dream. I was outside. They nod quietly, stir the fire, and say, did you see anything? That's the fear, right? That dreams aren't just dreams. That walking in your sleep isn't your feet moving, but something else guiding them. And in a world where dreams are considered prophecies, warnings, or spiritual battles, sleepwalking is not just strange, it's dangerous. Some households have remedies. They hang iron scissors above the bed, not open, not closed, just hanging there to cut away bad spirits. They place a bowl of water with rosemary near your head. They tell you softly, but urgently, not to eat certain foods late at night, not to drink cold milk after sunset, not to go to bed angry, not to fall asleep without prayer. You follow the rituals, because whether or not they're real, they offer something better than certainty, comfort. And that matters when sleep doesn't stay still. You remember hearing about the neighbor's son who walked straight into the river one night. They found him standing in the shallows, eyes closed, whispering to the moon. He came back safe, but he never said what he saw. People still talk about it in hushed tones, like the boy had crossed into something and came back changed. You don't want to cross anything, but still, you wake sometimes with mud on your feet. And not just you, children sleepwalk. The old do too. Sometimes they sit up and speak in voices that aren't quite theirs. Sometimes they wake with scratches. Sometimes they wake crying and no one knows why. Is it trauma? Is it a cry for help? A leftover instinct from when we were wild and sleeping in the trees? Or is it, as the village priest quietly suggests, a moment when the soul doesn't quite make it all the way back to the body before waking? In the daylight, it's easy to laugh it off. I must have had a strange dream. But at night, you're not so sure. Tonight, you light a small candle before bed. You whisper a protection prayer to Saint Dymphna, patron of sleeplessness and mental disturbances. You touch the wooden beam above your head 3 times, and you fall asleep facing the wall like your grandmother told you. Because if you wake facing the door, you might walk toward it. And if you walk toward it, who knows where you'll end up? Here's the thing, we still don't fully understand sleepwalking. Not now, and certainly not then. It's the shadow cousin of dreaming. The moment when consciousness and motion go out for a walk without you. And yet, in your medieval world, sleepwalking wasn't always feared. Sometimes it was respected, like lightning, like eclipses, like childbirth, something powerful, unknowable, bigger than you. So if you wake up standing in your garden tonight, arms raised to the stars, whispering something you don't remember learning, don't panic, just go back to bed. The night is strange, and so are we. The fire's almost out. One last coal pulses red in the ash like a tired heartbeat. The cottage is still your family, breathing softly, the pig curled in a heap, twitching in some mysterious porcine dream. Outside, the wind hums low, brushing against the walls like an old lullaby that only the trees remember. And you are sinking, not fast, not sudden, but like a leaf falling through warm, syrupy air. One breath, then another. Your body knows this rhythm now. It doesn't resist, it doesn't analyze, it just lets go. You're about to sleep like a medieval peasant. Let's bring it all together, this world we've lived in for the last 19 nights. You've tilled the fields, hauled the water, shared the bed, dreamed during first sleep, stirred during the watching hour, breathed in firelight, breathed out darkness. You've faced the night in silence and in song, and you've learned the secret. Sleep wasn't a luxury, it was a way of life. Because you, dear traveler of the past, weren't sleeping. In spite of discomfort, you were sleeping within your world, not fighting it. You didn't need a therapist to say set boundaries with your blue light exposure. You didn't need an app to remind you that melatonin exists. You didn't have to gamify your sleep with smart rings and REM trackers and high-performance mattresses made of space foam. You had the sun, the seasons, a body that labored, a home that darkened, a family that breathed beside you. You had rest built into the year, naps built into the day, and sleep that belonged to you, not a system. And that's the beauty of it. Sleep wasn't scheduled, it was honored. So now, here in your bed, whatever shape it takes, whatever fabric covers you, however loud or quiet your room is, let yourself return to that ancient rhythm. You don't need perfection. You don't need silence. You just need to stop fighting. No judgment, no pressure. No, I should have gone to bed earlier. Just the pull of the dark, the softness of your breath, the knowledge that in another time, in another life, your body already knew how to do this. Sleep like a peasant, not because you're poor, but because you're finally rich in stillness. Let the stars keep watch. Let the world turn slowly. Let your dreams walk the night, if they must. You'll be here, waiting. Word count 138. Summary 300 words. And now, dear listener, you're at the edge of sleep. Tonight, we traveled far from glowing screens and buzzing clocks. We stepped into the hush of a world lit only by flame and moon. You wore straw-stuffed bedding like royalty. You rose and slept by sunlight, not pressure. You breathed the rhythm of old wood, damp soil, and warm bodies pressed together in the name of survival and comfort. You slept in two halves, rose to whisper in the watching hour. Let your thoughts drift like ash across a quiet hearth. You listened for bells, told stories in the dark, rested when the seasons told you to, and found healing in silence. You saw that even chaos could not steal rest from the peasant heart. Not famine, not war, not plague. You learned that rest is not earned, it's remembered. That dreams don't need decoding, only room to grow. That sleep is not a reward, but a rhythm. And the closer you walk to nature, the deeper it becomes. You've wandered under stars, walked without knowing, watched over children. And now you're ready to return, not just to your bed, but to a part of you that always knew how to rest. Let that part rise now. Let it guide you. And as the world fades slowly, gently, like the last note of a lullaby, let it all go. You're home. You're safe. You're tired, and that's holy. Sleep well, night walker. Sleep deep, old soul. Sleep like you've done it for 1,000 years. End of script. Good night.